the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting.
Uh-oh.
Excuse me.
Oh, now we better be on our
Okay,
game.
once again, I am calling to, and the mayor has shown up.
Oh, man. Uh-oh.
Okay, calling to order the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of June 7th, 2023. First order of business is a roll call.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll go ahead and take roll call. Chair Grumbine is absent. Vice Chair House.
I am here.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dordan is absent. Commissioner Drury is absent. Commissioner Ensberg.
Here.
Commissioner Lenvik.
Here.
Commissioner McClure.
Here.
And Commissioner Uli.
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment for items that are not on our agenda today.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. If anyone in the audience would like to speak on an item on general business not on today's agenda, please fill out a speaker slip and then turn it into me. Turning to virtual, we do not have any virtual participants, and we did not receive any written correspondence. Still having not received any speaker slips, I'll go ahead and turn it back to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. I will close public comment. Next item on our agenda is general business, item B, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of May 24th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Don't all speak at once. Okay.
I move to
Okay,
approve the
motion
minutes.
by Commissioner Ensberg and
Second.
second by Commissioner Butler. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Corrections? Apparently not, so call for a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Ensberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Abstain.
Commissioner McClure.
Yes.
And Vice Chair House.
I abstain also, I wasn't here.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is approval of the consent calendar of June 7th, 2023. That was
Motion to approve.
today. Motion by Uli and second by
I'll second that.
Lenvik. Any questions about the consent calendar? Okay, roll call vote, please.
I'd like to have a list read of the items.
Oh, yeah, we usually do that, don't we?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item was 113 Harbor Way, number 150, which was continued indefinitely with comments to reduce the size and massing, to lessen the visual impact. Item B was 130 Canyon Acres Drive, number A, which received final approval with the comment that the improvement, it would be an improvement to add a foot in height to add more plaster between the window and the eave. Item C was 27 East Coda Street, which received project design approval and continued indefinitely for final approval, making the necessary findings. Item D was 1635 State Street, which received project design approval and final approval, with the comment that the applicant has an option to add a barrier and then the necessary findings. And then item E was 2304 State Street, which received project design approval and final approval with the necessary findings.
Under discussion, item B, that should be between the garage doors and the eave.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Ensberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Commissioner McClure.
Yes.
And Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Next item is announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ellen Kokinda, Design Review Supervisor. I just wanted to inform the commission that the City Council will be discussing the emergency ordinance. There's a really long name, and I've just completely blanked in my mind of what it is, but it really has to do with State Street and the parklets, and this was the ordinance is supposed to sunset on December 31st of this year. And so recently, a couple months ago, there was a conversation here at the commission per the chair's request to discuss kind of what an interim plan and really having the Historic Landmarks Commission to be able to discuss and make suggestions for council for consideration. So council will be discussing that on the 27th of this month, as I understand. And I just want to let you know that we have agendized for your next meeting on June 21st to discuss the item. And as I'm aware, Chair Grumbine will be back for that, so who is going to facilitate a little bit more conversation with the commission. But it'll be a good opportunity to be able to pass along comments to council as part of that. So just an FYI. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bet the mayor knows what it's called.
I bet he could school me in that. Thank you.
Okay, next item. Well, is there any other announcements or et cetera, et cetera?
No other announcements from staff at this time.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move on to subcommittee reports. Are there any of those? I don't think so, looking at the list of subcommittees.
I can report
Oh,
briefly on the State Street Advisory Committee meeting that was held 2 weeks ago Wednesday, after our meeting here. And I'm sure most of you either saw it or attended. And it was productive in one way and not productive in another way. The goal was to expose us to three options for what could be done on State Street. And as we got into it, I think that many of the State Street Advisory Committee members found out for the first time that bicycles were more or less mandated by other policies in the city, mandated to be on State Street by other policies in the city, and there was a reluctance even to want to look at alternative routes, which would be Anacapa and Chapala. And I think the meeting more or less broke down on that revelation, as well as other items that we were seeing for the first time, obviously. It was our first exposure as a committee to any design work. So I believe the designers, MIG, probably went away shell-shocked. And I have been told that the next scheduled meeting of the full committee and a presentation has been postponed to an uncertain date right now, assuming they're going to come back with plans that maybe reflect more of what they heard from us at the meeting. So it's an ongoing project and will continue to be an ongoing project.
thank you for that report. Okay, if there are no other subcommittee reports, we'll move on to the first item on our agenda, item 1, structure of merit designation for 1538 Alameda Padre Serra. And this is a request to adopt resolution 2023-07 designating the secessionist-style structure designed in 1912 to 15 a historic structure of merit. Who's here for this item? Come on up, have a seat. Staff?
Yeah, I'll do a quick presentation and then we'll hand it over to the owners.
Okay.
I did want to just start off that 1538 Alameda Padre Serra has been on the Historic Resources Inventory and was recently nominated to be elevated to structure of merit by Commissioner Lindvik. And the owners were really excited about this prospect. And I'll just go over how it meets the criteria in just a few slides here. It was constructed in 1912 to 1915 in the secessionist style, which is a very rare style to Santa Barbara, and I'll go into the aspects of that style. We're really fortunate on this project because the owners provided us with some great historic photographs. Just to begin with, you can see the development of the area up on Alameda Padre Serra. Here's it is in 1930 with just, you start to see the lots being filled in up on the hill there, and then a few more in 1950, and then here's today where all the lots are filled with housing. And here you see some of these historic photographs. This is being such an early building for the Riviera, constructed again through 1912 to 1915. You see the beginning of the house being constructed, and this great photograph of all the construction workers and stonemasons chiseling that beautiful stonework that's up on the Riviera. And here you see they're starting to construct the pier and cap wall stone wall that lines Alameda Padre Serra. And here's a current photo of the building and the photo when it was recently completed. You just can see the one alteration that's happened on the building is the enclosure of that open loggia above the doorway, which is, other than that, the building retains a really high level of historic integrity. So, as we mentioned, it is a characteristic of the secessionist style, which was really a Viennese design started in the 1800s. It was a very, like, one of the first steps towards modernism. The secessionist style was both anti-academic and anti-historicist, as it was hard to pin down specific attributes, but the quintessential secessionist style building is Ulbricht's Secessionist Exhibition Building in Vienna. This was constructed in 1897 and 1898. The movement really progressed. Architects became increasingly interested in planar and classical forms, and it really was an important predecessor to really getting this bold rejection of historicism and looking into modernism. The early Vienna secessionists anticipated and inspired many of the modernist movements in art, architecture, and design, including the Bauhaus Design School, as well as the International Design School and Art Deco. The secessionists itself continued as a group until 1939, when the growing pressures of the Nazism led to its dissolution. And then after World War II, it was reformed and continued to sponsor exhibitions, both in the secessionist buildings and elsewhere. And the influence in the United States really can be summarized by the words of one of our most prominent American architects at the time, Ralph Adams Cram, in a speech he gave in 1913, contemporary to when this house was built, at the Contemporary Club of Philadelphia, in which he described the secessionists as those working in a new modernist style as one of the most important recent trends in the United States, especially in Chicago and the Pacific Coast, alluding to Frank Lloyd Wright and in the Midwest and the Green and Green brothers in California. Cram said he found the work of the secessionists striking, novel, and inordinately clever, even exquisite. And the lecture suggests what a profound impact the secessionist movement in Central Europe had on the United States. And most American designers saw the work of these Austrian secessionists through exhibitions that toured the U.S. cities through various publications. This really, this building itself really embraced the style with its geometry and abstractism with large geometric volumes, building with the stark linear design, the restricted ornamentation, and all elegantly balanced with the natural wood windows, wide wood door, and wood pergola over the porch. Again, this is another picture of it, one of another historic photos. This is just a treasure to find this many original photos of a building. And to conclude, it does qualify as structure merit under criterion 3 because it was designed in 1912 to 15 in the secessionist style. That is a rare and important architectural style, and to the architectural repertoire of Santa Barbara. And it also includes the native sandstone wall lining the streetscape. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
And the hitching post, pardon me.
Would you like to make any comments? Yes. Turn on your microphone, please. Just press that button, yeah.
Okay. Yes, thank you for having us. So, just to give you some context on our experience with this house, a little over a year ago, we bought this house with the plan to move back from Santa Barbara. We were living in China, but Shanghai, but we had in a historic house there. But we had 4 generations of my family have been in Santa Barbara, and we fell in love. We bought this house online. We fell in love with the idea of it, just the layout, and of course we had people go visit it and tell us this was a really unique treasure. So we've spent
with a real sense of history.
Yeah, with a real sense. So we've spent the last 9 to 10 months working on restoring it. It had really fallen into disrepair. You can see the photos. The modern photos here are from about a year ago. And since then, the pergola above the porch was completely rotting. We completely restored it and took it down and restored it to its original. Here you can see the pergola above the sunroom had been completely taken down. So we've also restored it back to its original design. And so we've moved in about 3 weeks ago. And we continue to love we haven't changed any of the layout, everything. I mean, as you've seen, I think you approved the designs. We've really just taken the house, the original windows. There's original beveled glass in all the windows on the first floor, that we've kept everything and really kind of painstakingly tried to restore to its original glory. And now that we're living it, we're very, very happy that we did, and it feels, very comfortable and modern, even with its original layout and design. So, just to tell you that our plan, we have 3 small children, our plan is to live in it for hopefully the next, foreseeable future, a few decades, and little by little continue to restore it up to its original glory, because it really had about 30, 40 years where it was really falling apart without much
No ghosts so
love and
far,
care.
I trust.
I don't know if we have ghosts
Yeah, no.
so far,
So far, they've been at bay. So.
but yes, there's plenty more to
spirits.
do in terms of the especially the landscaping, the outdoors. There's so much to do, but we've really kind of our goal is really to bring it back to its original state.
Okay, well, if that concludes the presentation, then we'll go to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. First to virtual public comment. If anyone joining virtually would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we can call on you. Not seeing any raised hands, and if anyone in the audience would like to speak on this item, we do have speaker slips to fill out. Please fill one out for us. Not seeing anyone jumping up to that opportunity. We did not receive any written correspondence, so with that, I'll go ahead and turn it back to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll close public comment and open it to questions from the commission. Or comments.
Yeah, I saw this building as it was being remodeled 3 or 4 months ago and was taken by it and suggested that we maybe designate it in some way, shape, or form. And our historian contacted the owners, and we're going along that path. I think the only thing that I would have commented on, it's a beautiful building, and I'm glad that you
Thank you.
got it, and I'm glad you're taking care of it. I oftentimes get a little picky when I'm reviewing work, and the awnings that you installed are mounted higher than the traditional awnings. If you look at the photo, yeah. Well, I mean, it's just a comment. In 20 years, when you make changes, you may want to drop them down a little bit. Look at the photographs that were in color, maybe from the 50s or 60s, that were up there.
Oh, that was from 2022.
There, okay, yeah, okay.
That was from early last year.
Yeah, okay.
But
They're
falling apart, as
they're
you
ready,
can
but
see.
you see
Yeah.
they're down lower,
Yeah.
and they kind of fit in better, and would probably give you, a little more sun protection at that level. You've mounted them so that the bottom of the flaunce is pretty much level with the top of the window, if you could get that high to see it. So when you're down below looking up, the thing really looks high. So, it's not a big deal. Life will move on,
We'll
But
take it as a note.
I find it a very interesting and pleasant building, and it's not Mediterranean, it's not colonial revival, but it's very appropriate. And it was apparently one of the first buildings on the Riviera, if I recall.
That's correct, sir.
Yeah. So I'm very supportive of it.
Well, thank you for those comments. So who would like to make a motion to adopt the resolution to designate this building as a structure of merit?
Mr. Vice Chair, I will make that motion to designate 1538 Alameda Padres area a structure of merit and add that it is an excellent example of its style. There are not many like it in the city, which makes it even more precious. So I'm happy to support this.
Thank you. Motion by Uli and second by
I'll second that.
Lenvig. So roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvig,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
and Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion
and
passes.
we present you with this certificate. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you to the commission, and if there's opportunities or a need to share the property to the public in any forum, we're absolutely welcoming of that. I think one of the things that we feel is history is not something you just put up on a pedestal. You need to live it. And so we're grateful to have our family. We're grateful to have grandparents that live 6-minute walk up on Mission Ridge so they can come down. But it also means sharing what we see what you see, is that this is a very unique asset. And so if as suitable, we would welcome to host events for the community.
Thank you very much.
And we like wine, so if people want to drink wine, we can do that too.
We'll be right over.
Okay, right.
You're in the process now of landscaping.
Yes, we need to do that, so.
Have you hired a landscape architect, or are you doing it yourself? The design.
We do have someone who's given us some preliminary designs, but it's just given the volume of work and the
Yeah.
cost, I think we're taking it step by step.
Maybe check some books out of the library about, there are a lot of buildings of this style in Vienna. And,
Oh, yeah.
And you may have been there, you may have seen them, but the landscaping, there's probably a landscaping that fits well with this building.
Thematically.
Yeah, and maybe you can chase that or follow that.
So,
Yes, no, that's a
wonderful
great-
idea, thank you.
Suggestion. Yes, it'll be a multi-year project, I think. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, have a great afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for letting us see the pictures inside.
Oh,
The
thank you.
wood, yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
beautiful.
really wonderful craftsman work.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to item 2? Okay, item 2 is 1426 Bath Street. This is another structure of merit designation. Request to adopt Resolution 2023-08, designed by designating the Queen Anne Free Classic style structure designed in 1892, a historic structure of merit. So who's here representing that project? Come on up, please. I haven't banged my gavel yet. Okay, if you'd like to give your name for the record, please.
Nicholas Scozzaro.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we'll turn that on. And staff?
Okay, great. This house, actually, we have a little bit more background history because they did an article in the newspaper on it in 1940 with a little more history. So I have a little more than we usually do. It was actually in the 1880s, Amasa Lincoln purchased these 2 lots, one for his son, Henry, and one for Lyman, to build their homes on. And Amasa was the original owner of the house we now know as the Upham Hotel. So this house was given to Henry P. Lincoln, and in 1889, he constructed this house on this lot. And he constructed it as a 1-story building in 1899 and was married in the front living room. And he said it was the biggest living room in Santa Barbara at the time. And as their family grew, in 1904, 1905, they put on the 2nd story. And that is probably when they changed the style from more of a more Queen Anne to Queen Anne Free Classic, because the Queen Anne Free Classic was really popular between 1900 and 1910. And that's when they did the addition with all the shingles and the Free Classic columns. So you would see that the house is significant for its 1904 condition. And we can see several, this is the building on the 1898 bird's eye view map as when it was still 1 story. And here it is in the 1892 Sanborn map, still as 1 story. And then you can see on the 1907 Sanborn map, 1907 map shows it in its current configuration with the 2 stories and the little recessed porch and the bays as it is now. This is a photograph of the house in the article from 1940 with the shingles and the Free Classic columns. And just a quick background on the Queen Anne Free Classic style. It was very, as we said, really popular in the 1910 to 1900s as people were starting to move away from the Queen Anne style and become more streamlined. So you see the classical columns, the streamlined cornice lines, and more less of the gingerbread as you see in this house. The key character defining feature would be the really classical columns on the front porch, decorative shingles, and lack of ornament under the cornice, as you see in this. This one does still have this beautiful decorative glass in the transom above the bay window, and has the beautiful recessed porch. And in conclusion, I also want to say that it does also have an ashlar cut sandstone wall that contributes to its significance. And in conclusion, this house does retain enough integrity to meet criterion 3 of the Santa Barbara Municipal Code.
Thank you very much. Would you like to make any comments, sir?
Sure, I guess just to add to that, thanks, Nicole. Yeah, so Betsy Green runs a independent column, and she wrote an article on the house as well. But yeah, we purchased the house 2 years ago, and just kind of some of the information about the house was passed on to us when we purchased it, and we just kind of went down the rabbit hole of learning about this, and when we learned that it was eligible to be a structure of merit. I mean, I grew up in Santa Barbara, and I planned, moved away, moved back, and purchased this house, and so I plan to be here for a long, long time, and I just hope to my partner Genevieve wasn't able to make it today, but together we just hope to take great care of it and maintain its historic integrity for as long as we're here, which we hope to be a long time. We're also building some ADUs in the back, and we've been inspired by kind of like on the side of the house, it has these like shingled like drip edges, so we're incorporating those elements into that. Yeah, I think that's all we really have to say.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So open public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. If anyone in the audience would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we can call on you. I'm sorry, fill out a speaker slip and then turn it into me. Turning to virtual, if anyone virtually would like to speak on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand and we can call on you. Not seeing any raised hands, and I do not have any speaker slips, and we did not receive written correspondence, so back to the commission.
Thank you. I will close public comment and open it to questions from the commission or comments. Commissioner Ansberg.
I will comment and say thank you. It's a beautiful house, and I appreciate your recognition of the importance of it and your diligence in taking care of it. So, great job, and I would I would move to approve this under criterion 3.
Second.
Was that a motion?
Yes, it was.
Yes,
Oh,
I
okay.
kind of moved it into a motion.
All right, good. All right, so I have a motion by Ensberg and a second by Uli, and a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes,
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
and Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
And may I present to you the certificate?
Awesome.
Make
Thank
sure
you
I
so
got the
much.
right address there. I think I did.
In fact, 1733 Mountain Avenue. So.
Oh, good. Uh-oh. I thought I rearranged these so I was handing out the right one. Well, maybe you want to buy that one too, so that's another solution.
HLC's Monopoly game.
Yeah. Okay.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is item 3, 1733 Mountain Avenue. How about that?
We know the outcome already.
Yeah, okay. This is a request to adopt resolution 2023-09 designating the English vernacular style structure designed in 1930 a historic structure of merit. If you give your name for the record, please.
I'm Graham Lee Wingate.
Great, thank you. And report from staff. You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and Commissioners. This is a house constructed over on the west side, which actually was completely built out by 1930, and I'll show you in a minute. This was constructed in 1930, English vernacular style, and also an example of the kind of housing promoted by the small house movement and competitions of the 1920s. Here you can see this is the 1930 sandbar map illustrating the whole block fully developed by 1930, and the original footprint of the house is the same as today, as well as when many of the houses on the block illustrate different one-story styles from the 1920s. So it does retain this sense of setting from when it was originally built. The English vernacular style was widely popular throughout the country. taking its well-earned place amongst the period revivals of the early 1900s. It had more of a romantic view with European roots looking into English medieval castles reflected in the very steep pitched roofs on the front of the buildings. And as a result, it adds charm and variety to the city's streetscapes, and a testament to the era of the 1920s when we saw such great growth and development in the city. And it also represents an example of the small house movement, which I'll go into in a minute. The house does retain all its original features, including all the original windows and massive chimney on the side, so it can convey the original 1930 appearance. And as we know, the English vernacular style is portrayed in our style guide as a style important to the city. And this building does contain many of the character-defining features seen here, with the steep massing, the plank door, and the divided light, mostly casement windows. And here you can see the character-defining features again of the two steeply pitched front-facing gables intersecting with the long side gable, the wood panel front door with no return, and then the wood casement windows, as well as the large expressive chimney on the side gable. This type of house was also an example of what was featured in the small house movement. The small house design competition here in Santa Barbara featured a whole section on English style, and you'll see that in the middle picture here that has some of the similar features as this house with the casement windows and the steeply pitched roofs and the paneled door. And here you see one from the National Architectural Small House Design books from 1930. Small Homes of Architectural Distinction, a book of suggested plans designed by the Architects Small House Bureau, which was, as we learned, part of AIA. It really architects trying to promote better quality housing throughout the United States through architects participating and giving plans that were distributed to people who couldn't afford architects, giving us a really great repertoire of high quality smaller homes. So in conclusion, the house qualifies as a structure of merit under Criterion 3. It's a representative of the period of the small house movement of the 1920s, and it embodies the characteristics of the English vernacular style. Phew. Sorry. There we go. It's a good.
Do you have any comments you'd like to add?
Yeah. I grew up in Santa Barbara on the west side. My parents live 4 blocks away, and we were looking for a house, knowing that we wanted to have a family. We really wanted to find a house with character and something that inspired us. It just so happened my mom takes walks around the neighborhood and stumbled on this house and started talking to the neighbors, a couple of which are in the audience here today. And we saw it on a Monday before it was put on market, put the offer on Tuesday. We had our daughter on Friday.
Whoa.
We planned to be there for a long time. My dad was a builder here in town, Brian Wingate, and I actually studied architecture in college, but do not practice. I do marketing. It has always been a dream of mine to have something that we could really keep up to the style. Obviously, we want to make sure it's comfortable and not a sieve when it comes to winter heating. So there's a lot of work we want to do, but our intention is fully to keep it to its original look and feel.
That's a very sweet little structure. Okay, I'll open public comment if that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. If anyone in the audience would like to speak on this item, please go ahead and fill out a speaker slip and turn it into me. Turning to virtual public comment, if anyone participating virtually would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we can call on you.
No comments from the neighbors? No, we're for it. Okay. Okay.
Not seeing any raised hands and no speaker slips, and we also did not receive any written correspondence, so back to the commission.
Okay, thank you. I will close public comment and open it to questions and/or comments from the board.
I don't have any questions. It is really a charming little house.
Yeah.
And I guess what makes this afternoon wonderful is that we've seen 3 wonderful pieces of architecture that are completely different, and just gives you a sense that we have a great heritage here in this city. So I would make a motion, notwithstanding any other comment, that we designate 1733 Mountain Avenue as a structure of merit.
Second.
Okay, motion by Uli and second by Butler. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I'll take the roll call vote. Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
and Vice Chair House.
Yes, in my
Motion
process
passes.
of elimination, I can't give you a long one.
We have a very short process here.
No, I appreciate the time and I appreciate what you all do, so.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Tell your friends.
Yeah. Okay, let's see, we're ahead of schedule. We can proceed with the next one, though, can't we?
We,
Well, we need,
Um,
yeah, we need a mayor here.
So just an update.
Thank you.
That unfortunately, the mayor had a conflict for another 2 o'clock meeting. So was not, where I think there was a slight miscommunication in timing. So unfortunately, we'll have to reschedule. So he will be back. So I think we can just postpone this particular item. And let's see, for the next item is scheduled.
Do we need a
to-
motion to postpone it?
Yeah,
Or
well,
can you
we
just
can do
it?
that just for the
Process
record
safety.
and process. But the next item, the airport terminal improvement project, the earliest we could hear that is 2:15. So we've got just 10 minutes or so, maybe a
and I-
little less.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to continue item
I
number
actually don't,
4.
pardon my
We don't?
interruption. I actually don't because it's postponed at the applicant's request. We're just,
well then, perfect.
staff is just making that announcement. And if we could recess until 2:30, I don't believe the team for this project will be here until 2:30. So
Okay.
if we can just,
I have a question of staff.
yes.
I could yell. How does this presentation by the city officials differ from what we had a number of months ago?
So, if I may, to Commissioner Lundvik's question, so it's really not, it is part of it, but if you recall, the mayor wasn't here that time. It was just the presentation from the city clerk and as well as from Graciela Reynoso and our and another department. So this is really just for the mayor to speak. So it was going to be very short, a couple of comments, and unfortunately, it was just timing-wise, it wasn't going to work. So we're just trying to get him back so he has an opportunity to speak to you. So that's really, it's just tied to that, but there won't be any other presentation beyond that.
Okay,
Well, I suppose that he wasn't here to say we're fired.
yeah,
So that's good.
and we're all dismissed.
No, he very much cares
Okay,
about you.
well, we are in recess then until 2:30. recess the meeting, so I will reconvene the meeting with the bang of the gavel. So reconvening the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of June 7th. And our next item is the Airport Terminal Improvement Project. And if you would like to give your names for the record.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, or Chair House.
Technically Vice Chair.
Vice Chair? Okay.
Call Chair for a day. Yeah.
Chair for a day. Yeah, let me just get this PowerPoint pulled up. Okay, perfect. So my name is Jessica Metzger, and I'm a project planner with the Santa Barbara Airport. And with me today, I also have two other members of our Terminal Improvement Project Plan, our director, Chris Hastrut, and our supervising engineer, Brad Klingsling. And we're here today to give you kind of the first blush of our Terminal Improvement Project. And we have been taking this presentation around to various boards and commissions that are listed under the design work group here on this slide. But just to back up a bit, we also have our development manager, Sarah Iza, who's not here today, but she's also part of our airport team. What we'll be presenting you today was a collaboration with this main team, but also all of the other departments and divisions in the airport, including our operations, our maintenance and facilities, and our patrol. And so I just want to recognize their contributions as well. We started out this process with an RFP to get the design started, and Corrigan, who is a nationally renowned airport consultant, was selected for the process. And as a sub-consultant to them, we also have 196, who's our local expertise in architecture of the buildings that you will see. So in November of 2022, we went out to all of the design groups in the Santa Barbara and Goleta area and asked for volunteers to help us kind of refine the designs that 196 and Corrigan had come up with. And those people who volunteered are listed here, and I'd just like to recognize Cass Ensberg as your representative on our design work group. And so we met around 4 to 5 times and took probably about 6 or 7 different designs that our consultants came up with, and the design group picked and chose their favorite elements from that to make what we'll be showing you today. So the agenda for today, we're going to just give you an overview of the airport itself and a background of the project. We'll show you the drawings and the elevations, and then talk about our next steps and take any questions or comments that you may have. So our purpose really is just to start the public process for the Terminal Improvement Project, and hopefully you can help us in letting everyone know that this is something that's happening right now at the airport. The Santa Barbara Airport is the largest airport on the Central Coast. We're a primary commercial service, and in airport terms, we're called a small hub airport. We serve over 1 million passengers annually, and we have over 100,000 annual operations and 150 based aircraft. So those are aircraft that stay at our airport. We have 3 runways, in addition to general aviation, which are 2, we call them FBOs, fixed base operators, that run the private jets that you see. And we also have flight training and maintenance on the airport as well. The background of the Terminal Improvement Projects is that it started in 2017 with our master plan. It was identified as a needed facility improvement in that master plan document. Master plans are something that airports are required to do, and they look at a 20-year horizon, but are really adjusted every 5 to 10 years based on conditions that might be changing in the industry or also in the region itself. So our master plan from 2017 is also being updated right now as well. And in that process, we have completed a forecast of the passenger enplanements, which is people getting on the planes. And our growth is forecasted to be just about 5% each year. And so that is something that is a lot higher than it was in 2017, where the forecast was only around 3. When we went out for our request for proposals for the project, we had certain design elements that we required. The first being an additional 2 gates and additional hold room space. And in airport ease, hold room just means the area that you wait for the plane at after TSA. We also realized that we needed more concession space than we have now, and so that includes food, beverage, and retail. And both through the master plan update and in our design elements request, we have heard that our baggage claim area can be very crowded, and due to its low ceilings, kind of feels a little confined. And so we wanted to improve that baggage claim area experience. And then additional departure space, both at ticketing and self-check-in and the TSA area. And so you'll see on the picture here in this slide, we actually have people queuing downstairs for TSA before you get upstairs on busier days. And this creates quite a problem for us in a variety of ways because we need to have extra staff there to escort them to the escalators so they don't get backed up on the escalators, and the circulation just doesn't work quite as effectively as it should right now. So this is our site plan of level 1, and I'm going to move these cords. So using the laser pointer here, this is our main entrance to the airport here. And to your right when you walk in is ticketing and self-check-in. And then we have the escalators here and then the baggage area here. And then if you're arriving at the airport just to pick up someone, you can go out to the outside area here that has the kinetic machine that was moved from the historic terminal. And on the drawings, everything in a darker color is new construction, and everything in the red dashed line is additions to the existing building. And so this is additions to the ticketing area to give us more space there as requested. This is an additional elevator. Right now, we only have one that's accessible to the public, and we need some redundancy in that in case we have operational problems. And then one of the other circulation problems that we've found is currently the escalators going down dump you out by the front doors. And so people that are collecting their baggage get a little confused about where the baggage claim is, walk around the front, causing circulation issues. And so we talked to our consultants, and we're going to change that direction. So now when you arrive at the airport, you will come down the escalators and be in the baggage claim area itself. Additionally, if you use United, Gate 5 at the north end of the terminal is pretty crowded, and so we have more space being built there, looking towards the mountains. And then we're also enclosing some of the space here on the patio, and we'll have additional office space here for some improvements that are happening on the second floor. So currently in the terminal, we have the rental car kiosks in this area here. They are now moving to the improved area of the airport terminal over here in the lavender color. And then baggage claim will be increased to this dark green area as well. We're also getting additional restroom facilities in the pink area here. and additional hold room space, that waiting area by the gate on the first floor here, that will be accessed from the second floor after TSA. And then this is the second floor site plan. So once again, the darker colors are new areas. So this is additional TSA space in the orange here and here to help alleviate some of those circulation issues. We also have additional restroom facilities for the newer area in the terminal. And then once again, the teal and the gray are additional hold room, waiting room areas. And then on the north side, this is the addition to that Gate 5 as well. And one of the things that we have heard, both in our master plan update and in this process itself, was a real nostalgia for the old terminal's original restaurant. People really miss having that as an option to go and sit and have a lunch and watch the airfield. And so as part of what you'll see in more depth later on in the architectural renderings, we're also adding concession space over a portion of that downstairs patio. So all of this purple is new concession space, and it should fit about 50 to 60 people, which will also further help alleviate the crowdedness that can occur in the existing terminal. Additionally, we'll have new kitchen space here in the lighter color purple, and then a lactation room and a pet service animal relief area here. So looking at the footprint of the building itself, this is just your aerial view of everything that is new in the blue. And then you'll see here are 2 new gates that will come off the second floor. And then for that first floor hold room, we'll access the parking area over here. So then to orient you to the airport, in case you haven't been there in a little bit, this is our existing terminal. This was the design that was actually approved by the HLC on the top of the slide, and then a photograph of the terminal. So you'll notice, and were any of you on HLC when the terminal went through? No?
Might have been.
Okay.
Can't remember part of it.
All right. Yeah, so you'll notice the standard elements from the El Pueblo Viejo district in the downtown area. We have the red tile roof. We have the Santa Barbara sandstone. We have the tower with the copper topping, and also the trellises to the left or the right of the front door. Additionally, we have the potted lemon trees leading up to the main entrance. And one of the interesting things when we started this project that I learned is the parabolic arch that goes through the center of the terminal here was actually to mimic an airplane nose, which I thought was pretty cool. And so we'll zoom into these in more depth on the next slides, but I wanted to give you the full overview. One of the very important things that came out of our design group, working group, was that they wanted to keep the new portions of the improvements really simple and to make it definitely feel like it's part of the existing terminal and not an addition. And so you'll see that the elements that carry through, like the sizing of the windows and the trellises from the existing terminal over here. And so this is the front of the terminal on the very top of the slide, and then this is the air side of the terminal. And we also have the southern elevation here and the northern elevation here. And so with both the southern and northern elevations, we wanted to take advantage of the new structures and add additional windows so you can watch both the airfield and also the mountains and the Goleta Slough wetland area on the other side. We do have beautiful views out at the airport. So looking at the front side again of the airport, this is a new addition to the existing structure, and it pulls out from the baggage claim area and also pops in some windows that don't currently exist to give it more light and air in there. And then this area is also pulled out in the ticketing area to give more room on that side. And the treatment on the outside on this is the same. And then on the second floor here, we have the smaller windows, and that is actually due to it being where the TSA is. There's certain requirements to not have large windows in that federal space. And then our rental car kiosks are moving to this area here, and the windows are smaller on that area because that's kind of the back of house of those kiosks. And then looking at the second floor here, the reason that we have this trellis area and not more windows is because there's a lot of mechanical equipment up there. And then TSA past where the public TSA area is has its offices and some training rooms in this area here. So we were able to carry the window treatment on over there. This is the existing arch that you enter to the rental car kiosks, and it's maintained in the new design. But you'll also have another exit closer to where the rental cars will be in this area here. And then looking at it from the air side, so this is the new portion of the building here, looking at the mountains on the north. And this is all of the new improvements to the south. And so this area here is the hold room. So we have those large windows again. And we have a lot of mechanical equipment down in this area here, including the tugs and the baggage carts and whatnot. And so the windows were kept smaller in that area because it's not quite as great a view as this area from the hold room. And then this is the concession space here that I'll go into one more slide in depth on the next slide. So what we looked at with the design work group, and I'm sure Cass can speak more to this, I'm sorry, Commissioner Ensberg can speak more to this, is having this additional space for the restaurant, but also not losing the parabolic arch. And so 19.6 is working on a creative way of pulling out that arch so it's not set back because of this addition on the second floor. At this point in time, our designs are only at 10%, so that will happen more in our 30% concept design, which will be in the next 4 to 6 months. So in the existing downstairs patio, we have some glass glazing along the edge that was required by TSA, so people are kept from hopping over and getting on the airfield. That's maintained on the second level as well. And then these supports were made to mimic the supports of the, I don't know if they're supports necessarily, but these lines with the parabolic arch. Buttresses, thank you. It's hard being a planner in an architectural world. And so this is just, once again, the site plan that you saw earlier that shows the kitchen and the lactation room and the pet relief room, as well as how you can configure the dining to get about 60 to 50 people, or 50 to 60 people there. So this is our schedule. Right now we're in the conceptual design, like I said, with the 10% drawings. And we will be going to the architectural board review for concept very soon. That's on the plate to get scheduled in the next couple months. And then in August, we'll be going to City Council to get our next contract for that 30% drawings approved August 22nd. And then we also will be going to Planning Commission sometime in the next 3 weeks for a coastal development permit. And you can see our construction will most likely start in 2025, and end in 2027. And so really just ending again on the purpose for us being here today is just to start getting the word out and get you thinking about this project, because we'll be coming before you with more complete drawings as we have them. This is just a picture of our air side. And so we're happy to take any comments and questions that you may have. And we also would love for you to sign up for updates on the project if you're interested at flysba.com/TIP. And with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Could you speak a little bit to what HLC's purview is in this process?
At this point in time, HLC is just a reviewing body. We actually are not required to come to you per code, but we felt it was very important to include you because you had such a large part in the original terminal. And we are not touching the historic terminal in this project. If we were, you would be different.
All right. Well, if that concludes your presentation, we'll go to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this item, please go ahead and fill out a speaker slip and then turn it into me. So then turning to virtual public comment, if there is anyone participating on Zoom who'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we can call on you. Not seeing any raised hands, and I don't have any speaker slips. We did not receive written correspondence, so back to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. I will close public comment and remind the commission we have about 7 minutes until our next project, so let's try and be concise. Questions?
So that means we have to talk really fast?
Yes, sir.
So if you're going to increase your passenger rate by 5%, is that 50,000 people a year, each year you're anticipating to increase? If you're doing 1 million now?
I don't have the exact number of the forecast, Commissioner Uli, but we could get that to you.
Well, you don't have to get it to me. I'm just trying to run my head through the math. I mean, 50,000 people a year additional is a lot of people.
Yes.
And I suppose at some point your planned improvements will also exceed the capacity of the people going to the terminal. So is there, past this improvement, is there another one projected to reach that ridership of 2 million or whatever it is?
Yes, through the chair, Commissioner Uli. So the master plan update, which is happening kind of at the same time as this, will probably identify additional facility needs, and that could also include more terminal expansion.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Commissioner
Yes.
Ensberg?
Thank you. Can we look at the the new elevations? I think you have one that has the front and the rear, both on it. And first to say thank you for all your hard work. I think it's been a really great process, and it was really an honor to serve on the committee and help to move it forward. And I think it's come a long way in a very good place. Since we only have a couple seconds, I'm going to just dive in here, but I wanted to, I really like how the left side is connecting more. I feel like sort of big picture that we have this central part that has the arch and the tower and the stair, and it's this kind of little vignette that sort of says Santa Barbara, and with all those elements, And then as we go off to the right and to the left, to me, these are sort of, should be like they are, especially on the right-hand side, I would say, very simple, practical additions to the building to provide the support. It kind of is. And so I think that's very successful, and I think that the left side is moving toward that, but I think there's a few things that are kind of, I think it's best to leave the sort of the frivolity, I'll say, of the decorative parts more to that central piece instead of adding them And we had a lot of discussion about that because the previous version that had been proposed was much more kind of Spanish Village looking. And we just said, hey, let's simplify it down. And so this got to here. On the back, and again, I'm just kind of jumping around, but we talked a lot about that concession. And I'm wondering if on this side, you know, I was very, I think everyone felt very strongly that that arch needs to show all the way through architecturally that it's such an important piece that it needs to read all the way through and not have a bunch of stuff in front of it. But it becomes a problem of how do you do that, right? So I just wondering if perhaps this part could be more lightweight and maybe more of the airline industry, a little bit more and back to that previous project we were looking at earlier today, the Secessionist, something more modern or that, you know, on this side of the building that could be thinner and less bulky to help to work with that, achieving the you know, not blocking the parabolic arch. And
That was more like comments.
oh, question mark? Okay.
That's okay, let's
sorry.
roll them together.
Okay, sorry about that. And then also, again, that bottom part, you know, I'm not sure that the stone, maybe just keeping it simple again, simple, and just leave, you know, this side more simple and more emphasis on the arch. So that's kind of my big picture comment. And then I wanted to also ask, because we had so much discussion about the concession. Is there any food like that lower level? Is there anywhere to go and get something, a snack or something to take out there with you? I thought I noticed that over in the baggage claim that are there concessions over there? It looked like there was that. Did I read that right?
Yes, Commissioner Ensberg, we're very excited at the airport to get a local business who's doing fresh fare in a vending machine right outside of baggage claim. So you can pick up a sandwich or a salad, or I think smoothies are even in there. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if there's something like that could be, because by the time people are getting their stuff, they're leaving, and they're going to go over to some restaurant, I would say. Maybe if there's a different place for that could be closer to that area to be able to provide that. Anyway, something to think about.
I would say let's try and stick to things that are HLC's purview.
Oh, I
instead of food.
apologize. Okay.
Making us hungry.
Yeah.
We did have a lot of discussion about the sort of that previous ability to go to the airport and have, but the way it is now, you'd have to go through security to get up there to get to that place. So, anyway, thank you. Sorry
Thank you.
to
That's okay.
speak too much.
Any other comments, questions?
I don't have any questions. My comment is that I think it's a really good solution. I think you've done a very, very good job of expanding the existing building. And I don't share the same concerns that Ms. Ensberg shares with regard to the airside parabolic arch. I don't think people are going to spend a lot of time looking at that elevation when they're coming into Santa Barbara. And how you see it from the inside is more important than how you see it from the outside, in my opinion. You know, I don't share her concerns. I think it's very important to be able to get outside there on that deck and watch the planes come in. I've always enjoyed that when I've been out there waiting for people. So I have no problem with that. I think my only criticism might be that you could probably even simplify the elevations further. I mean, I don't know that you need all the little windows, for instance, the TSA windows. I don't know that you need all of those. Maybe you need none of them. Maybe you need fewer. I don't know that down on the right side of the air side that you need all those windows on the second floor. Santa Barbara architecture works very well with blank walls, just plain blank walls and no penetrations. So I would say that a simplification by way of reducing the penetrations, the windows, whatever, might be something worth looking at. But other than that, I think it's really a good solution. I don't see where I'm going to park my car, but that's another problem.
You're taking an Uber.
Yeah. Commissioner Ooley, you have comments?
Since I'm commenting without the microphone on, why not? Why not? I agree with some of those comments. I suppose the real challenge is having a Santa Barbara-style air terminal, particularly on the air side, where people want to see the airplanes and the air traffic. I always enjoy, when I'm at an airport, watching all of the various vehicles and people doing their thing. And if there are no big windows to see that, then I'm staring at a blank wall inside the building, and it's like, oh, that's going to be boring as hell. So I recognize the challenge about having large openings on the air side that don't really match the architecture. But to the degree that you can open it more, I think that will be a benefit to the traveling public that use that building.
Thank you. I'll call on Commissioner Butler next.
So I would agree.
Are you on?
With
Yes.
the last comment in particular, because you're right, especially when you're outbound, it's like, where's my damn plane? Right? You're sitting there.
Is it
So
here yet?
anyway, I think that's helpful. The one thing that struck me is the linear nature of the building and the flat line of the roof. I really like in the front of the terminal, you know, the arch, the tower in the middle, and on the far right side, nice way to sort of break that up. I don't know if it's really noticeable to somebody, you know, you pull up in front and maybe not, but it's starting to really stretch that roof line out. I don't know if there's some way to take advantage of that to maybe break the roof line up a little bit, or on the one end that doesn't break that line. My other question was not design related, but did I see that there's not going to be any addition to the ticketing area? Is that area is going to stay the same?
There is a small addition to the ticketing area, so we're pulling the wall out.
But is
Whole
that for
area to the right of the entry there?
Does that adding more ticketing stations, or is it just more square footage to the area?
More square footage to the area.
That's what I thought, yeah.
But the way that we have been working with the ticketing stations is we actually have 3 vacant right now. And a lot of airports are no longer designating areas specifically for one airline, but having like a marquee kind of style. Because they're not all taking off at the same time.
Yeah, okay, right, okay, thank you.
Commissioner McClure, do you have any comments?
Nothing.
They didn't give you any landscaping.
No, but I think it looks great.
There are no plans on this project.
Okay, my comments would be, I agree with Commissioner Lenbeck. Well, generally the comments about simplification, I would exercise caution about oversimplifying, because this is like a city block long, and you perceive little bits of the building at a time. So, you know, I would like it to be pedestrian friendly when you're up close to the building, and so simplifying it too much might work counter to that. And if you could go to your closing slide. Commissioner Lenvick, do you have a comment on the mounting of that awning there?
Well, it will solve that problem down the road.
Yeah.
That's existing.
There was an issue on a previous
It's very-
project of the
it's very
height.
high in the air.
Yeah,
It's out of scale with the height of the wall and the door below it.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is just a discussion item. There's no motion necessary, so thank you very much for the
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed Peter's flying machine, it's old.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is item 6, 812 Garden Street. This is a revised project design approval and final approval. This is located in El Pueblo Viejo. This is a revised project description. Ooh, wow. Proposal to convert a 12,416 square foot office building to a 30-room hotel with an 886 square foot second floor. Can we have some quiet while I'm reading the project description, please? Thank you.
Order in the court.
Yeah. 886 square foot second floor mezzanine. Revisions include roof reconfigurations, new doors and windows, new balconies, removal of exterior stairs, landscape changes, removal of previously approved roof decks, and a 796 square foot reduction in floor area. So project design approval and final approval are requested. Project compatibility findings are required. The project was last reviewed at the March 30th, 2022 consent hearing. So if you would please give your name for the record and your presentation, please.
Thank you. My name is William Rivera. I'm with AB Design Studio.
William, you have to turn that way.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
There
Okay,
you go.
Will Rivera with AB Design Studio. And I'm here to present 812 Garden Street redesign. The purpose of this presentation is because our client would like to upgrade the exterior the same amount of, at the level of the quality that he has invested for the interior. The first round, we did interior renovations only, and our client is interested in upgrading the exterior. And so basically what I've presented to you in paper form is just the floor plans and elevations showing what was previously approved. We have a permit for this currently. And so if you look at down below, you'll see what is proposed and up above what was previously approved. Do you want me to give you some time to like go over those drawings, or do you want me to?
Does that conclude your presentation, or do you want to go to specific features and
That's pretty
tell us
much
more
it. I
about
think
it?
it's pretty self-explanatory. We've done, it was a bit of a puzzle to transform this building into a Spanish style, but, it should also be noted that at this point, we are also agendized for not only preliminary, but also final, because it has been such a backlog in your agenda that our planner was compassionate enough to give us this, and hopefully you'll share the same compassion.
No, on your knees, please.
Yeah, I know, I'll do whatever you want. No,
Yeah, I know it.
no, I'm just kidding.
Are we known for compassion?
No, you're not, but you know what? We've got history,
okay.
Steve, come on,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Well, I think to that end, then you should show us what level of detail you have in
Okay.
these plans.
So, everything is pretty much the same. The site photos are exactly the same. All this site references is all the same. Our existing site plan is exactly the same. There's been a few minor modifications, but the most noted is that in this area here, there was some interest in saving the existing palm trees. So what we did was we tore out about 4 feet towards the property line, up to the property line, this concrete, and we moved 3 large, medium-sized palm trees towards the street so that we can have those be expressed in front of the elevator shaft. And on the right-hand side, we had a stairway that was going up, and we have removed the stair and basically converted that to a balcony that will be used by the units on the second floor. Other very, very minor things are we moved the bicycle parking area to the left side of the building, but it's pretty much the same site plan.
So, yeah,
ahead.
by detail, I was meaning door and window details,
Oh, sure.
balcony, roof eaves.
Sure.
The things that we need to look at a final approval.
The things that you love. Okay,
Yeah.
so, these are our roof details. And we have clipped this existing rafter tail with a radius to create a little bit more of an interest. We have added 3 different plaster cornices to create some variation and interest in the roof. We have, there's some stairs that will have to be redone, and we are, the main stair at the front, we will be tearing out and putting in traditional tile risers with saltile tile treads. We've added some cupolas and some vents and some corbels and arches that are all represented in the elevations. Again, we've added, these are some more cornices, more corbels, more your typical Spanish detailing that you would expect in a nice building like this.
While you're on this page.
Yes.
Where you're hovering over right now.
This here?
That's an unlabeled detail, but I don't know where that is
It's
in the
not,
building.
basically, this is, there should be a label, this is a plan of the second floor unit on the west end, the very west end.
This thing right here.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's the only, in the previous
Stairwell.
plan, we had mezzanines on all the units. This is the only mezzanine that we are keeping, and it was, the way we were able to keep it was by adding this little cupola up here that allows you to get up into this space. The other cupolas, we didn't have the head clearance for the stairs. So below is the plan of that unit, and here is the, could zoom into that a little bit. So this is the plan of Unit 30 at the upper level. We're calling it attic plan, basically a mezzanine that goes up to this little cupola. And then this is a section. This is the window looking back, and I can show you where that is in the elevations if you want. Oops, sorry. And then the rest, window details, window, door schedules, and our materials, basically we're adding all new doors and windows. Before we kept all the doors and windows the same. And we are replastering the parts that need replastering with the finish to match existing. There's a few areas that are being re-roofed or new roofs added, and we are adding this Spanish clay tile here. And we have several light fixtures that are appropriate for the design of the building, and restaining the rafter tails. That's basically the presentation. We have new structural for the areas that only have changed from the previous structural drawings, and that pretty much completes my presentation. I'll be happy to go over any specifics that you would like. The one thing I would like to also share is in both, you can see this in both our plans and our elevations. I'll start with the plans here on the first floor. What we did was we increased the thickness of the walls on both the Garden Street and, gosh darn.
I hate it when it does that.
Yeah, I'm not really. Okay. So we've thickened the walls on both the Garden Street elevation, which is this here, and also on the De La Guerra Street elevation, which is here, to create some nice depth in our our windows, you can see this is what we had proposed before. And this is what we're proposing now. There was a series of wing walls in the existing building that were, all across the front elevation that you can see easily on the drawings of the photographs. So basically what we did was we took the wing walls out on the west end of the building, and we kept some of them on the east end of the building, and we used that to create a little bit of an articulation in the fenestration because it's so flat, the building is so flat. And we did that also on the the De La Guerra Street elevation here as well. So that's kind of like the language that we kind of like spoke into this architecture to try to make it a little bit more interesting. And we also added I'll go on the second floor, you'll also see that we added some balconies looking over towards the north, which is looking towards the mountains. This balcony that used to have a stair that I mentioned earlier is, the stair is now gone, and it's going to be a balcony for Unit 21, basically infilling where the stair was. And you can see here as well on the Garden Street, we've added several balconies. This is basically where the wing walls were, and where we popped that out. And also here as well, we've taken advantage of those wing walls and popped the building out to create a little bit more of a fenestration and interest in, the architecture. So again, here on the De La Guerra end, we've also did the same thing, but we maintained our existing single stud construction on the north end of the building for cost's sake, and it's really, nobody really can see that from that end of the building anyways. So we put most of our attention on the street and corner ends of the building, which is what you will see mostly. You can see here that all these units before on the mezzanine had access to a roof deck, and we only have one roof deck on this Unit 30 on the very end. All this will be existing mechanical roof decks that are not accessible to anyone. So you can see here we added a little roof element here. This is that little cupola up in Unit 30 that we looked at earlier. We added another one here on this end, and some other very minor vent details and chimneys that are basically just false chimneys and vents for architectural interest. So as you can see, this is approved front elevation that we have a permit for, and we are moving forward with. Our client, like I mentioned before, would like to upgrade the building to be more of a Spanish style, and we've gone through great efforts to do something that you all love, and we hope that this is in keeping with the Historical Landmarks Committee's here we go. This is, I'm sorry, having a little bit of time navigating this. Okay, the next page is basically the same thing. This shows existing approved north elevation. Sorry. There we go. And what we are doing now is we are modifying that to a more Spanish architecture. This is entries into the parking area below, which we're not doing any changes to the parking area below. It's basically only change of the plans to the second and the third, the first, which looks like the second floor here, but this is the main level, is the first floor, and the second floor, plans and elevations. You can see some of the little cupolas that we popped out. We've extended this little piece of building out and created some nice architecture with some Moorish arches, and this is the west end of the. Oh, this is actually one of the cupolas on one of the ends. There's one on each end to kind of like tie the buildings together, bookend the buildings. And what we have also added, because we're working for our final approval, is that we created these computer elevations that are basically based off of the hand sketches that I did, and they have all the proper detail callouts in the set that were submitted. They're not in the set that I handed out, but it's basically in the set that we're submitting to you here today. And we have all those elevations drawn on the computer as well. The east and the west elevations, you can see that this is basically what was approved. And what we'd like to do is cut this wall down a little bit. It's 6 feet tall, and modify this wall a little bit so that as you go up the stairs, you can see the views of the mountains, and opened up this wall a little bit to get some light. As you walk down this tunnel, you'll be able to see some natural light, and we are thickening this wall here to create the sawtooth detail. And same with, this is the garden, I'm sorry, this is the De La Guerra Street elevation that was approved. And what we are doing now is we have modified that to create this kind of architecture. This is a false cupola. It's purely architecture. This event will be used by, vents for the bathrooms below, and this is the balcony that I mentioned earlier. And we will be cladding this whole front perimeter of the existing plaster wall with a stone veneer.
Okay, I need you to wrap it up, because we usually
That's
give.
it.
Okay, if that concludes your presentation, we'll
Thank
go
you.
to, sure, thank you, to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. Turning to in-person public comment first, I do have a speaker slip for William Nelson. Mr. Nelson, if you want to come up to the podium here and just make sure the light is green by pressing the button to turn the mic on. And if there's anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak, we have speaker slips over there. Please fill it out and bring it over.
Good afternoon. My name is William Nelson. I live right next door at 818. I live upstairs there. I want to talk a little bit about the drawing to begin with. Your improvements relieved me greatly. Their first proposal here was a little scary. This is actually a beautiful building. I kind of like it. Hopefully you can execute that all the way through the exterior. I want to talk about the balconies you have on what you're calling the north side. That side overlooks a long-established senior residence, of which I am a member. I live in a building next door, so actually Laguna Cottages surrounded this. Every effort that you could make to reduce noise on that part of the building on the north side would be greatly appreciated. windows, thickening of walls. Particularly wanted to ask if you can reduce the size of those balconies so that chairs and living space would not be available on those balconies. They really are truly Romeo and Juliets. And as that cupola that you spoke about on what you're calling the west end of the building is the only remaining open deck, which was my main concern, and I live on the second floor of 818, that cupola is about 25 feet from my bedroom window. So I'm concerned about noise. That could be taken care of with on-site management. I'm also concerned about parking there. The handicap zone that's right in front of your building is very important to the residents and their visitors where we live. I know you're going to have an unloading somewhere, but that handicap parking needs to be dealt with in some way so that it's maintained. Parking issues could also be dealt with by on-site management. Otherwise, it's going to become a police problem. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you for your comments.
Sure.
Thank you. Next, we have Vivian Brown.
Hi, just a process comment. I'm not quite sure. When I looked at the plans on my phone, there seemed to be quite substantial changes to the plan and the elevation. So I'm not quite sure how one can go from that to final approval in 10 minutes. So that's one question. The second one has to do with, do you have page 1 of your proposal? It's just it's no plans or. It's just written summary of the first page. Yeah, that one. Can you expand that a bit? There's just something I didn't understand on it. Okay. It said, I still can't read it properly, but anyway, I know what the question is. It seems to have gotten through planning and a lot of things without full something or other. I don't know what the process is, but it was zoned, because it was zoned commercial and converted to, the conversion is commercial, it seems to have gotten through pretty quickly on the other commissions. But there's something there that says that before it was zoned business, not zoned, its use was business, and now it says R1. So I'm not quite sure how R1 gets to be a 20-room, 30-room hotel. It's right on your, it's right on there, that it's converted from business use to R1.
Let me ask you to complete your comments first, and then we'll try and address that.
Okay, that's basically it. I mean, for the Landmarks Commission, I mean, there were some issues somewhere along the way that it got converted without real public comment to a hotel. But that's not within your purview, I don't think.
Not entirely, and probably the best thing for you to do is talk to staff and get answers to those questions.
Okay, but not these.
I can't answer it for you.
No, not that part, but what about how your approval happens, how they're asking for approval in 5 minutes for a
Well, you will
substantial
soon
change?
see, because we will go into questions and answer comments.
Okay, and the R1, will it be explained to me too?
I will ask the architect to explain that a little bit.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay, can you answer that question?
Yes, okay. Basically, the R1 is because it's converted to a hotel. I mean, all of the zoning, planning issues, everything that we're presenting to you today has already been vetted and gone through planning, and so there's nothing squirrely going on here, obviously, but all we're doing is we're changing not changing the use of what was previously approved. We're just changing the architecture, the skin of the building.
Okay, thank you.
And through the chair to the public, just to expand on that. So the zone is the commercial zone. The zone has not changed. The use has changed. The the use was permitted in that zone when it was an office, and now it is permitted in that zone as a hotel. So it's in the commercial zone. Also, for the plans that you are seeing presented on the screen are the exact plans that were linked to the agenda and the plans that you were viewing on your phone. Any additional process questions, you can email me. My email is found on the agenda, and you can send me those questions. The zone is not R1. The zone is commercial. Yeah, the R1 is a zone.
Mr. Chair, staff.
Yeah.
The,
Take a stab at it, please.
in the city of Santa Barbara, we have what is known as pyramid zoning. And that means that in a commercial zone, you could put residential, with a couple of exceptions. But in a residential zone, you cannot put commercial. So they are putting a use which is allowed under pyramid zoning, a use in that zone. And I think that's the clearest answer. But staff could tell you what pyramid zoning means and why it functions here. But we can't discuss this between you and I.
Yeah. Thank you for your effort, and we should move on. Is there any more public comment? I guess virtual, in case there is some.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. We do not have any more virtual participants. I do not have any more speaker slips. We did receive written correspondence from Suzanne Wood just prior to the meeting, and I did distribute that to the commission. So with
Yes.
that, back to you.
Thank you. I will close public comment and open it to the commission for questions. Any questions?
I have a question, comment, which I simply throw out there as a matter of interest. We have so many applicants in the city of Santa Barbara who don't like doing our Mediterranean-style architecture. They want to do contemporary architecture, so on and so forth. It's interesting to see a client come along and say, I guess he's saying, I see more value in our Mediterranean architectural style than I see in commercial style.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. I find that really great. I wish your client was here. So
He's listening.
Huh?
He's listening.
Well, so he could wink at us and tell us
Yes,
how
he's
important,
winking.
yeah, how important the style is to the success of a building. I find it very interesting.
Any other questions?
Well,
I wasn't meaning specifically you, but anybody on the commission.
no,
You can build the
I have comments. yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Butler.
On the proposed north elevation, you have the parking entries. I think it's, well, I don't see the page number on here. Are those just open? Is that open parking, the entries to the parking? Is that,
Yes, it currently
it's
is.
just open?
It is, it's just
There's
open.
no planned covering or gating or anything like that?
Not really visible from anywhere because
Yeah,
Galagher
because
Street is heading
low
downhill
level.
from the intersection, so.
Yeah, okay.
So currently,
Yeah, you can see it.
currently there's these open parkings,
Mm-hmm.
parking into the parking, and there is, basically you go in and you go out, you go in and you go out, and basically there's, that's how the building is designed
Right.
originally. And all we're doing is we're, you know, putting some molding around it and some corbels on the ends to kind of create a little bit more of an interest. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I do have,
Are you finished with your
Yeah,
comments?
that's,
I do have a question. When I look at this elevation, these are pull-in, back-out parking spaces, is that correct?
The parking is, no, they're not. You're going to have to look at the,
We'll have to look at the plan that's not provided, is that correct?
There's no garage light.
there's no garage.
I am mystified by the span on
is a
those
big
openings. I can't imagine that you are spanning that far with no support.
That's currently the way that the building is.
Well, that's the engineer's problem.
Yes and no. It's also an aesthetic problem if you're changing the building, however.
Well, and it would benefit by some intermittent columns, but
Yes.
we'll see how that evolves. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Uli.
I'm wondering if the applicant could go through the detail sheets with a little more time devoted to them. If we're looking for final, then we need to ensure that at least the requisite details are present before we can feel comfortable doing that.
I would suggest that we kind of get through with comments as to whether or not this is ready for a final, and if we're okay with the design. And if we generally are, then I could see getting into details, but, because I have some comments that might
All right.
affect that. Well, I will make
Vice
those
Chair?
comments.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I agree with Commissioner Lenvik. I mean, this is a very handsome-looking building. I'm also very sympathetic to the neighbors' concerns, but unfortunately, that's not our purview, and this does not go to Planning Commission, is that correct? And so anything you can do to work with the neighbors, and I don't know to what extent you've already done that, but presumably on the north elevation, you'll have a lot of scaffolding, and if there's some way of sound blankets or something like that that can help with noise control, that would be great. But once again, that's not our purview. What I noticed most was that something is lost in translation between the hand drawing elevations and the CAD drawings. I mean, window proportions changed, and it's just not as romantic. And so, you know, I would like to see a closer coordination between the hand-drawn elevations and the CAD drawings. I also had concern noting on the structural plans that the roof rafters were 4 by 12 at 4 feet on center, I think. But that's existing, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so I wasn't thinking they were existing, and I'm thinking 4 by 12 is not the right proportion for rafter tails, and 4 feet apart, and they're going to twist, but they're already there. So, you know, I think you should take a second look at to whether or not you can do that detail on the ends up in the air. I mean, that's usually done on a bandsaw, so think about that. But what is the overhang right now?
The overhang is over 4 feet, and the part where the wing walls jet out towards it are closer, so the
Yeah.
roof, the rafter tails only stick out about a foot past that.
Yeah.
So our idea was, in order to create that radius detail, you would just strike it with a, you know, with a compass, and then you would just take a, you know, a Sawzall and just cut the shape.
No, not going to work.
Well-
But anyway, once again, not our purview,
Yeah.
but you're re-roofing the building, is that right?
Most likely,
Yeah.
we are not committed to re-roofing. We are definitely, at this point, creating new roof, new Spanish tile roof that, for the areas that we're adding.
Yeah. I'm guessing you'll probably have a lot of penetrations too, so, you know, maybe
Correct.
you ought to give some thought to re-roofing and perhaps shortening the overhang, because, I mean, 4 feet's an awful lot for this style of building, and so maybe you'd have more opportunities to get things more in the right proportions. But anyway, that's my feeling, that it's not ready for a final approval, because I'm not entirely convinced. Well, you know, I could support a PDA, because I think the architecture is beautiful, but I think it needs to be seen in progress to return a little bit more to the proportions of
Okay,
the.
I'd like to speak in terms of both the privacy issue with the neighbors, because it's basically a 3 feet, 3 stories and tall, but at the top, but it's also another 1 story down below, like the grade drops dramatically.
No, I know that.
So what we've done was, we have the shorter balconies that are 8 feet on the west end, and the 12-foot balconies closer to the De La Guerra Street where
That's the
the
length of the,
12-foot, yeah.
it's not the projection out or.
No, it's
anything,
only
okay.
4 feet, it only projects 4 feet.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's advantageous for us not to cut the rafter tails back is because of stormwater management. And if we cut those areas back, then a lot of times we're not able to do the balconies because we actually are penalized for doing so.
Okay, well, let me get other comments. Commissioner Ensberg.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair House. I think this is really beautiful. I think you've done a really, really nice job, very appropriate. But again, I agree with what other commissioners have said. You know, whatever you can do to help the neighbors out. If there's a way that it could be a Romeo Juliet and just have big French doors that open so you feel like you're outside, but not encroaching on their privacy. If there's something there, I would just encourage you to work with them. And whether or not that roof deck is really necessary, or maybe it could just be way smaller. To consider that when you're working it out with the neighbors.
The
And
roof deck
then-
is just mechanical now.
No, they have one roof deck
Oh,
for
do
that
you?
one
Yeah,
unit.
but from that roof deck, you're not able to look down at all. There's mechanical walls that are 5 feet tall, completely surrounding that roof deck, other than the Goleta side of the building, which is the west end of the
The
building.
west. Well, maybe look at that
Yeah.
part then. And then I agree with the vice chair about the drawings. You know, it was kind of sort of a jump when I saw that. I'm like, wait a minute, it looks completely different. I don't have any issue. I appreciate you've got an existing building that you're trying to bring up and transform. So I have no issue with the overhang at the 4 feet. In fact, I think it's kind of interesting, like it's sort of different. And because you've added so much detail, it's kind of, I think, a feature. So I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with the span at the parking. Obviously, that's, and I think you've added the, you know, the decorative frame around, and I think that helps to make it be, you know, softer and more poetic. So, yeah. And that, yeah, so just if maybe the balcony thing, but great job. I mean, it's really, really beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner McClure, do you have any comments?
No comment.
Okay. Commissioner Butler, nothing further. Anybody else?
I have some comments.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I really appreciate what he brought before us. I think it's fantastic. And it would have been nice to have had it brought before us a lot earlier, as opposed to now where he's under the gun to get approvals. Because I think there are certain things here that could easily be done that would improve the project. For instance, I look at the, I'll use his elevation designations, southwest, west, whatever. The convention in Santa Barbara, William, is that north and south are paralleling State Street.
Right.
And you're not doing that, so I'm confused here. So your south elevation really is a west elevation by our convention. The stone walls there are beautiful and nice, and I think it's, there'll be a real nice feature on the street. I don't know that we need the little columns that are at each end of the wall. I think those could go away and save money, and it doesn't add anything to the character of the stone wall and what it's trying to accomplish. So I would say get rid of those columns, make the wall, you know, flat, step it down, whatever, but we don't need those transitional columns on the stone wall. The other thing that concerns me is the very tall arched opening dead center between the two portions of the building. In that, on the right side, it is not landing on anything, and we've discussed that previously with other applicants, is that there's no little column or whatever there supporting that end of the arch. And I don't know what could be done there, because it may encroach on the required width of the stairs. I don't know, but it would be nice if there was an engaged column coming down supporting that arch. When I look at this south elevation on the far left-hand side, that tower, I guess, is the one that I see where?
In the east elevation, or sorry, is it?
Oh, really? It's that one there.
It's that other one you said
Yeah,
you're looking at.
yeah. It doesn't,
West
eleva-
elevation, sorry.
pardon me?
The west elevation.
Yeah, the elevation which you call south and shows the detail and the supporting bracketing structure, all that, is one thing, but when you turn the corner and see it on the west elevation, it loses something. It's, there's no continuation of what's happening on that south elevation onto the rest of the elevations. And I think there's got to be either a lot of simplification on the one we see on your south elevation, or there's got to be,
I think this is a drafting problem.
well, I don't know, is that a drafting problem?
It shows a corner.
I see, yeah, okay, yeah. There's something not right about that tower.
We showed you the plan earlier in that suite.
North elevation shows it
I'll show you.
faceted.
And I apologize to the public if we're getting behind here, but
No, we.
I want to see this
item is
worked
4
out
o'clock.
right.
Well, let me ask the question, is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I'm not, I want to keep going here.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
It's
I
on a
want to
roll.
keep going. I mean, I find that Ms. Ensberg is really quite easy.
Well, you were earlier, but.
The other thing that I look at is on your north elevation. And in the center there, you have a arched window on the second floor. And I just don't know that it's needed. I think a flat head would be a much more appropriate solution there, like the window below it. It's just, it's, you know, different size windows, different window functions going on. It's confusing to me, and I think that the arched head there is not necessary. I also don't understand these garage openings. And they are, and right, you're right, we'll never see that from any place, except it doesn't appear right, you know, with that huge span with no support.
The supports are farther back inside. There's columns inside the parking area, but the opening is free and clear. You know, there's columns supporting the floor above.
Sure.
They're back.
Yeah.
But the opening itself is free and clear.
Yeah, but what we're viewing, what we visualize there is a huge unsupported opening. And that to me is a problem. I don't know if it bothers anybody else, but
Well-
that does bother me.
Architecture is architecture, and we consider all 4 sides of a building.
Exactly.
But,
Yeah.
you know, I think considering it's an existing building, I'm not that concerned about it.
Well, I agree, and however, we approved an existing building. Would we have approved this building as easily?
Not if it wasn't existing, we'd have concerns about
Well,
that
but
garage.
as far as I'm concerned, all these exterior elevation changes are not an existing building. It's a new building. That's my opinion.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and when I, on the next page, on the east elevation, proposed east elevation, again, that radiused head, it bothers me over those 3 windows or French doors or whatever. You know, you got a flat arch on the right side and you got a radius Romanesque arch on the left side, and I just think that the flat arch is probably a better solution. Is there no overhang on the second floor element on the right side?
No, there's a plaster cornice that we have.
But it's not a 4-foot overhang.
No, there's no
But
overhang.
there is a large overhang on the other one,
Yes, it's only at the
left side?
at the eave, it's only like 1.5 feet. On the rake, it's probably another a foot. And, you know, Ed,
But you've got a a ridge beam projecting, and you got a, you know, two beams projecting from the wall on the left-hand one, which is, it's supporting, I assume, a large overhang. No?
It's not.
Then why would you not have the same kind of detail there that you have on the right one?
Because Santa Barbara, like, you guys know, Spanish architecture is quirky, okay? Go look at the courthouse. Go look at any really beautiful building. There's things that maybe don't make any sense, but it's all about rhythm. It's all about proportions. It's all about, you know, fenestration. It's art. You know, it's a sculptural art, and so a lot of things may not make sense. You know, why do I have these little, these below it? Why do I have these little pilasters that are supporting that arch? And it's all because of proportion.
The difference between this and the courthouse is there's a massive amount of blank wall in the courthouse. And you can come to an area, you know, 100 feet down, and you do one kind of treatment, and you go 100 feet the other direction, and
Right.
another. But you've got different things going on, all within the span of your eye. And I think that's got to be simplified and made more harmonious between those elevations.
Let's not have a back and forth
Okay,
here,
that's
but we
fine.
do need to wrap this up.
All right,
so-
when you go over to the west elevation, move over, yeah, to the west elevation. That tall window there is non-traditional. I think that needs to be solved. I personally think that it's a great, you know, Mediterranean building, but it needs to be simplified somewhat. And I've offered some ideas on simplification, but I'm not prepared to give it final approval.
Does
Chair.
anybody care to make a motion for either a continuance or for a preliminary,
I would.
design approval?
Go ahead, Robert.
I don't think it's ready for us for a number of reasons, and so I would suggest a continuance so that some of the nuances of the elevations and the plans that are not synced now can be synced in a set of drawings that we're going to approve, and that the appropriate detailing is also sorted out. I don't think it's ready even for a PDA.
Okay. Would you care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue it indefinitely.
And would you like to summarize the comments?
No, I'll leave that to you since
Oh,
you're the
okay,
chair of the
thank
meeting.
you.
Don't we need a second?
What's that?
Do we need a second and then discussion?
We technically do. Would you like to second it?
No.
Oh. Would anybody else like to second that motion? Okay, second by Butler.
You have comments?
I do. I would like, as one person on this commission, I want to strongly appreciate what they have done. I think where they were before and where they have come, and I think that I would be willing to give preliminary design approval. I think they're going in the right direction, and certainly there's more to do, but I want to very strongly acknowledge them for the great work that they have done, and I agree with you about the quirky. I think I would be happy if you wanted to simplify it. But I very much appreciate that you've gone this far, and you've really put a lot of detail into it, and some, you know, expression. And, but if you wanted to, I wouldn't have a problem for you to be able to simplify it if you chose to do that for cost reasons or whatever else. But I want to say that this is a beautiful project, and I don't want to get too picky about things, because I think that's the design that you have put forth. So I wanted to say that, and I would be.
Believe me, I was going to compliment.
Okay.
The
And then I'll stop
application
there.
as
Thank you.
well. Staff, what is the procedure, I never can remember, if somebody wants to make a different motion? Is that a substitute motion, or?
You can go through with the motion that you're making and continue to make those comments, and then if the motion doesn't pass, then we can offer a substitute motion.
So it's only after the first motion doesn't pass?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion on the floor, and the comments I would make is that we very much appreciate the applicant's desire to improve the architecture of this building, and we think it's a great beginning, and we feel that the hand-drawn elevations capture the spirit we would like to see, and the computer drafted drawings fall a bit short of that. So we would like to see a closer correlation between the hand drawings and the computer drawings. There have been some suggestions to simplify some of the openings and have maybe more consistency in the type of arches used and less variation. But otherwise what? That's.
I would add to that, Mr. Chair, that there needs to be some resolution of the entry arch termination. There needs to be some resolution to the detail of what's being referred to as the cupola, although it's not a cupola, it's a second-story access point. There's some details that need to be resolved there. And various window openings need some resolution or further study. And that there was a comment to eliminate the gate post element of the front stone wall and just have it a simple stone wall. I think that captures some of what you said.
Yeah.
And with that, I think if there are no other comments. I
Right,
think those are-
and I would just offer a comment on that entry arch. Instead of an engaged column, it could just be a corbel or
Yeah.
something that it lands on. That's not unusual to see. So anyway,
I also want to compliment the applicant for taking a very plain building and pulling it into the style of the city, so that's very appreciative. But also, at the same time, we hold other applicants to the same consistent standard, and so if there are inconsistencies in the drawings, they're not ready for a PDA. They need to be consistent and tied together and thought out. So we're just trying to be consistent and not mean.
thank you very much. So we
Question, I have a question,
Okay.
please. Were the drawings of the CAD drawings, were those part of this submittal?
Yes, they were, and I'd like to add that, CAD drawings never look as good as hand drawings. This is why we submitted both, and I've meticulously gone through the window sizes and make sure that they're all the same sizes. And so it's just the nature of the beast, Unfortunately, we don't do hand drawings as much as we used to, but the CAD drawings are accurate, and they don't have a lot of the shadows and, detail that you have on the roof tiles, and, it's, so
Okay,
it is what
thank
it
you.
is.
Thank
But they
you.
are the same.
So I'm sorry and can you help me then, in terms of the process here, we have a motion and a second, and we have some discussion. And so we are going to vote on that.
Yeah.
And then,
And if it does not pass,
then
then you
we
could
will
make a
have another
substitute
thing.
motion
Okay,
if you
all
wanted
right.
to.
All right, thank you.
And I would just say, go back and look at the comparison between the CAD and the
Okay.
hand, because I specifically noted changes in proportion and space between windows and stuff like that. So anyway.
I'm sorry, please.
One,
One
okay.
last question. If there were suggestions made about changes to the documents that, we had the discussion we had, but if there was disagreement about those, should that not also be mentioned? I'm not sure. I thought some of the things they had.
I will add to the
arches-
comments that at least one commissioner felt that the project was satisfactory, acceptable, and ready for a project design approval.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So let's call the question, please.
I'll go ahead and take roll call vote. Commissioner Ensberg,
No.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
and Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
Can
much.
we be,
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Commissioner Ensberg, this is your opportunity to state for the record why you opposed the motion.
Yes, and I just think that they I would prefer that they had gotten preliminary design approval. But I appreciate the comments that were made, and I just.
Thank you.
Is there any way we can be agendized in 2 weeks?
It's up to you.
You have to get the plans
Yeah.
resubmitted.
We can do that.
I'd leave it to staff.
Yes, you can email me and we can discuss when you can.
Okay,
be
thank you.
agendized.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right? Thank you all.
All right, we'll move on to what I believe is our,
Just 2 minutes out.
what's that?
Just 2 minutes shy.
I know, I was keeping it right on time. Yeah. Okay, so our next item, item 7, is 932 Delavina Street. This is located in El Pueblo Viejo. The project is adjacent to 125 West Carrillo Street, a designated structure of merit, and across the street from 925 Delavina Street, a designated city landmark. Proposal to demolish the existing single-story automobile service facility and construct a new 4-story, 22-unit residential apartment building developed under the city's average unit size density incentive program, also known as AUD. The unit mix is comprised of 14 two-bedroom, two-bath units, 1 two-bedroom, 1-bath unit, and 7 one-bedroom, 1-bath units. 21 covered vehicle parking spaces located in a garage with parking stackers and 22 bicycle parking spaces. I think that's all. A planning commission review and approval is required for an exception to height limitations to allow a maximum height of 50 feet, 4.5 inches at the highest point. No final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings will be required for project design approval. Project was last reviewed as part of a one-time pre-application consultation on December 21st, 2022, and this is also a one-time pre-application consultation review. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Hi there.
I have some brief staff comments before we turn over to the applicant for their presentation. So I'm Pilar Plummer, Associate Planner with the City of Santa Barbara Planning and Zoning Division, and as was described in the project description, this is an additional one-time consultation to discuss the various changes that have happened to the design since December, including a request for a height exception. They're not asking for a uniform height of 50 feet, 4.5 inches, but at the highest point, they are asking for that. As a next step to this project, before they submit a formal application to the city, they will be going to Planning Commission for concept review on the overall project itself, as well as for the height exception. And so we're looking today for specific feedback, as you'll have to make findings eventually for this project, in any case, related to the project compatibility criteria, so size, bulk, scale, but specifically the architecture and sensitivity to context, because those are findings that Planning Commission will have to review for the height exception.
Okay, and
Yep.
perhaps I should start with the minutes from the last review.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Pardon me, let me pull them up.
And maybe if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I'll get us started off on the applicant side.
What's that?
I'm happy to kind of kick us off on the applicant side if you'd like.
Okay, but first I want to read the comments from last time.
So I'll read the comments into the record. In general, the commission feels much better about the new design and appreciates the applicant's significant response to previous concerns. 2, some commissioners believe the lower level units should go to commercial or public space or the entrances be reworked. 3, some commissioners believe the massing should be restudied in respect to the historic resources and their setbacks. 4, in general, the mass, bulk, and scale of the project is going in the right direction. The commission suggests moving 4th-story mass to the center so it is not affecting the neighbors. 5, pull the massing away as much as possible from the historic resource. 6, the commission appreciates pushing the garage entry back. 7, study reducing the height of the 3 large openings on the south elevation and add detailing that would be pleasing to look at from neighbor view. 8, restudy the corner window on the north elevation. 9, work with the neighbors to resolve any planning or easement issues that need to be addressed. 10, the commission does not support the proposed entrances directly into units from Carrillo Street. The commission suggested an entrance into foyer or entry space. 11, the commission supports the Muntins north and west elevations, but not those on the east and south elevations. 12, restudy the horizontality of the windows on the east elevation. 13, study designs of railings on the balconies that will help screen residential accessories and for privacy. 14, study egress and utilities and any other easements. 15, the commission requests to see three-dimensional models, including the relationship of the project to the existing historic resource and all major views from De La Vina Street and Carrillo Street.
Thank you. Okay, if you would all give your names for the record and then your presentation.
Yes, hi, my name's Craig Minus, and I'm the land planner, project manager.
CJ Horstman, project architect.
Henry Lenny, Henry Lenny Design Studio.
Thank you.
I'll kick us off real fast, and again, much of the history's already been recited here, but we are an AUD project. This is not the first time you've seen our project, but since you last saw us in December, we are definitely in the formal permitting process for the AUD. We have completed the PTR, preliminary team review with the city, so we've received their comments back, and per that recommendation, we're here in front of you to particularly review the height exception, and then wanted to take an opportunity to also review how the design has advanced, in particular to your last comments.
Okay.
So I think with that, Henry and CJ will largely get into the details of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we heard your suggestions, and we changed the Carrillo elevation. To me, is one of the most.
Pardon my interruption.
Mr. Lenny, can you pull the microphone really close to your mouth and just make sure
Well,
it's
yeah,
on?
you have to turn it on first.
Also that.
Towards the front there. There you go.
Sorry.
It's a test.
have to do that whole thing over again.
We heard you.
Okay, well, let's start with the Carrillo Street elevation. If we begin, well, in general, what we did is we removed the balcony that was projecting forward, because I had the same concerns that I think Cass did. And we would have to then put a awning in front of it, or metal, and also it was getting too busy, the building, and so we decided to completely simplify the building. And what we have now, instead, we reverse the doors, and the purpose of that is just to provide some ventilation to the unit. It was never intended that people were going to stand in front of it. And those rails that you see there, they're actually attached to the jamb of the building, of the windows. That also increased the verticality of some of those windows themselves. Now, if we begin on the left side, we did lower that whole section, and that was basically based on your comment to be a little bit more compatible with the Riviera Hotel, and that actually did work that well. We're going to have to figure out some stair issues on the interior in order to get to this lower unit, but it did work. The other thing is I did introduce an eyebrow, I think, and not a very big one. It's probably 2 inches, 3 inches, just to introduce a shadow line. Yes, on those. And then finally, on the top floor, that is where things begin to get a little bit more intricate with the windows themselves. We also, CJ and I, worked on getting the conceptual plans to match the elevations, and I think we're going to be able to do it. And let me see, lastly, on this elevation, remember there was an Art Deco corner window, which it wasn't received well. So instead of that, we just put a standard window. Now, the philosophy here for the design is that we would do what we could, as much as we could, to keep the integrity of the Spanish colonial revival on the most visible areas, and that is the Carrillo Street and De La Vina Street. The Monterey balconies that you see above, that is really to give a vertical termination to the building. In other words, building should end in some manner in some location. So that worked out rather well for us. Now, if you remember, we used to have some doors, and the intent of the doors on the front elevation was not to provide a private entrance. It was really to be able to open the doors to a garden area, because we have a 5-foot setback from the right-of-way to the street. All right, now maybe CJ, you can explain this better on your drawings and just go over the setbacks, the landscaping, et cetera, et cetera.
Certainly. So we did responding to the commission's comments with the traffic on Carrillo and kind of that more public-facing side. Want to eliminate those walk-up appearances of these units. So units are accessible only from the courtyard side, so entrance comes nicely in through this little pinch point into the nice courtyard there, creating a nice corner entrance to the site, having kind of a front door. But still off of Carrillo, we like the idea of having that more traditional looking front door. I think, Cass, you had some comments about that. So we have a vestibule that doesn't enter directly into the units, but allows for kind of a nice little formal entrance for walk-up off Carrillo visitors and other folks that live in these units to come in. Maybe there's mailboxes and things in this space, and then walk into their units, but no direct walkout. And then we have, as Henry mentioned, a nice hedge garden between the back of the right-of-way here, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on, and the building edge, and conforming to the setbacks, but also trying to give a nice little buffer and a nice small garden space for those units to open up what are now nice tall windows that mimic doors but aren't necessarily walkout spaces. So as Henry mentioned, those have been, I'll show on the elevations here, those have been raised up, the sill on that. So this opens up onto a nice screened garden area, which I think is better captured in Henry's rendition here on the title page, where you have these low box hedges and things like that. So really play with the landscape and the architecture in that way. And then to emphasize that more traditional public entry off the street, Henry has included this nice ironwork awning that kind of sticks out nicely, pronounces that as a special entrance. Gives it some hierarchy between the small eyebrows, still giving the nice shadow line, nice deep recesses, but this definitely feels like the front door and special off of Carrillo without having direct access out from those units.
Good, and then just one other thing to mention is just the hierarchy of floor levels. The first floor, by necessity, we have to have a clear 12-foot ceiling for handicap and all kinds of other things. The second floor is 10 feet, and the top floor to the plate is 8 feet. That is being proposed because there we can take advantage of the pitch. Now, if you look at the semi-details at the eave, they're not beams, they're dentils. In other words, plaster dentils that are spaced at a close interval. And that's just simply to provide some interest. The other thing that I should mention about the balcony, the Monterey balcony, it is the traditional old-fashioned Monterey balcony. We don't have any beams projecting from the building itself. There's actually planks with gaps that sit on top of the beams themselves. And then there's one example in front of City Hall on that building, and it's beautiful, it's very delicate and so on. So that's the idea. Now here, this perspective here just gives you a sense of what we're trying to achieve. And the garden area, what I'm calling the garden, but it's really just, it's an area so we can have some planting material. Do you have that sample? It's nothing like this. This is on Fifth Avenue and so on, but it's a miniature version of it. We will have some room to put some sort of trees, but the idea is just to put some sort of a landscaping in front to create a buffer between the public sidewalk and the building itself, and also for the residences that live there. And we have a very similar situation with the entry door, where there is an entry door, as you saw before. In this case, they have an awning. In our case, we have a very delicate, eyebrow to the building. All right, now maybe we should go on the Lavina Street, CJ. Here on the Lavina Street, we did keep one wrought iron balcony that projects, in this case, that you can see there. But we follow through the same philosophy on the next portion of the building by having those iron things, rails that get attached to the interior of the jamb, and then the doors now swing in. To tell you the truth, I don't think we need the awnings, because we have so many trees there and we don't have a sun problem. So all the trees that exist in the Parkway are to remain. And just very quickly, going on to the entrance to the garage, it is set back about 20 feet, CJ, approximately?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, 20 feet. We did the same thing that we did on Carrillo Street in the corner. We lowered that whole portion of the building so that it's more compatible to the historic building next door. And we simplified the upper level by creating I'm talking about the right-hand side and the ridge. Yeah, the parapet. I did meet with Brian Smith, the neighbor who owns the little Victorian house there as well. He had some concerns, but I think some of the suggestions that I think Ed made about making that elevation, the south elevation, a little bit more tempered, he liked that. So why don't we go on to that?
Overscrolled.
Yeah, there it is. If you remember before, we had some really tall elements there. So in this case, we do have a gate that is going to prevent people from just simply walking in there. It's a service gate primarily. And we have a 5-foot setback now, right?
6 feet.
6 feet. It's 6 feet. So it pushes it away from the building next door. I must say that the building next door is right on the property line or almost close to it. And then, as per your suggestion, we did, I suspect we're gonna need some kind of ventilation for the exhaust of the cars, so we just put some simple traditional iron grills in front of it. There was also, well, you can see the most significant change here is moving the penthouse from the corner. And actually, that worked out very, very well for numerous reasons. It gets us close to the elevator, interior elevator, and it provides some privacy. And I believe that you will not be able to see that penthouse from anywhere. the actual architecture is forcing us to go above the height limit, as you can see there. But I would hate to flatten that because it creates chaos inside the building. Who knows what it would look like? Remember, these are conceptual drawings still. We still need to simplify them of some sort. But I think what CJ and I tackled more than anything else is really the principal most important elements that you had some concerns. We still have a ways to go when it comes to actual making the building be close to perfect. Now, there were some clarifications that I think Pilar had questions, I think, that she had. And one of them is, the question was, is the Monterey balcony going to go beyond the property line? And this is one of the illustrations that shows that we're not. In other words, so we're going to stay within the 5-foot area there. And then you can see we drew a section there for clarification purposes to show where the sidewalk is and where the landscape area is as well. And we have an 8-foot sidewalk, and then you see the Monterey balcony above. Now, is there anything else, CJ? Oh, yes, the plaza that we have in front. We probably think about putting some sort of a permeable material that is required for us. So I'm still hoping that we can still use the brick with some gaps with gravel. I just don't like those concrete things. They're awful. But that's something that I think we have to work with.
Our stormwater management.
Yeah. That will guide that on, and that will determine that. We do have a ramp, a handicap ramp, and so, but that is nicely concealed, and that is set back with a, I don't know, 30-inch wall or something like that. We're still trying to determine that. Is there anything else? Craig? Okay. All
Well, if that
right.
concludes your presentation, we'll open it to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. If anyone in the room would like to speak on this item, please fill out a speaker slip and turn it into me. I already do have one speaker slip for Gus Lizarraga. My apologies if I mispronounced that. If you can please come up to the microphone at the podium here and turn it on so that there's a green light. You'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Check. It's on? My name is Gus Asarga. I turned it off. There we go. Check. There we go. My name is Gus Asarga. I represent Santa Barbara Community Housing. I'm also speaking on behalf of Cynthia Young, who is our executive director, who could not be here today. We own and operate Hotel de Riviera at 125 West Carrillo, next door. Thank you for affording us the time to comment on the proposed project at 932 De La Vina. As some of you may already know, we own and operate Hotel de Riviera, and we are here today to briefly communicate our current viewpoint on the proposed project. First, it is important to note that Santa Barbara Community Housing is not opposed to additional housing projects in the city, generally, but we need to speak up on behalf of our tenants and the impact this project is going to have on our tenants. There are still some yet to be resolved issues between our organization and the project that pertain to the following. Hotel de Riviera property includes 2 prescriptive easements over the 932 De La Vina property. First, an easement for ingress and egress along the southmost property line connecting to De La Vina Street. The easement is the only means of ingress and egress for larger deliveries to our property. There's literally no other way to move in large items onto the property other than through that area. Second, We have a sewer easement for a sewer line that runs underneath the 932 De La Vina property, and that connects us to the main city sewer line. And we've used this sewer line for decades. We believe there is a design solution for the sewer and the access, and we hope to see changes to the design to accommodate the impact on our tenants. Our organization is currently communicating with the developer to determine the best possible solution for everyone involved and hopes to reach a private agreement. The purpose of the comments here is to make sure the city stays informed of all potential issues with the proposed project. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank
Okay,
you.
is there any more?
I do not have any more speaker slips. We didn't receive any written correspondence, and there are no virtual participants. So back to the
Okay.
commission.
We'll close public comment and open it to questions from the commission.
I'd like to go.
Is your microphone on?
Yes.
Okay.
The obelisk, is that a water feature too? Is that just a light standard?
No, it's a piece of sculpture.
And what will it be made out of?
Well, it's made out of cast iron and steel. In fact, what I'm trying to do is to find some remnants of cast iron lights. And
I mean, it looks like it's a stone element on the corner of De La Vina and Carrillo. It looks like there's a light on top.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes, it is. It is, but it's not stone. It's ideally it would be a all cast iron salvage piece. The one on top could be a light fixture, but it would be blocked from the top. It would still be, I hope, transparent, but or translucent, I should say, and it would just. It will be like a light bulb that lights up.
Because the candle flame.
Like a okay, wait a minute. Candle flame is a better idea.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to give them time.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I mean,
that's an interesting thing. Anyway,
I-
we'll see what
just
happens.
a really nice quality, high quality, beautiful piece there. Thousands of cars every day. I mean, I think that's worth investing in. That's one question. And then, let's see, the metal or the cupola, there's a little man at the top, like how
Yeah,
tall
it's
is
a
that?
jazz player, and
jazz player.
and it actually does it's pinned, so as the wind blows, it blows with the wind. So
okay.
we'll see how we can figure out how to do that one too.
Will there be a soundtrack?
Not a bad idea.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Ginsburg.
thank you, Vice Chair. We didn't really go through the east elevation. Could we look at that? Oh, well, now we can look at it.
Yeah, here this is the one elevation that still needs some more work. But simply because of the light that we need to have on those units themselves. Now, I think cosmetically we can do something, and one thought that I had between those windows that you see, they're blank windows. In other words, they're mullions. But if you remember the detail at the Santa Barbara Junior High, in between the windows, they have a turn post. I think that's fantastic. Something like that. But I think most of the time that I think we spend were in some of the more visible elevations. But I do recall that you had some comments about this.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Oh, okay.
I only have one question regarding that corner element. Have you considered King Carlos statue there?
Don't go there.
Oh, really?
I'm still having nightmares about that.
Place for King Carlos statue.
He's hiding in a
He's-
courtyard somewhere in town.
Yeah,
And we're not going to say where.
yeah,
I know where he is.
yeah.
I have no questions.
Next to a plastic horse.
Okay. Commissioner Uli, do you have questions?
I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Butler?
Vice Chair, I did have one other question that,
Okay.
can we look at the De La Vina elevation just for a sec? I was just looking at this upper right corner, and, you know, the one that is going over to Brian Smith's property. Is there any chance, or did you look at the possibility of clipping that, where it could have like a little roof that might go across there and have a interesting shape in the room? If it could angle there a little bit so that maybe you could, or maybe wrap it, I don't know, somehow to kind of bring that elevation visually down a little bit? Have you thought about that, or is
Are you
that?
saying like a shed roof on that?
Yeah,
right
just
hand?
just
The second, or
the third.
upper floor?
Yeah, the upper floor there.
Well,
I guess that's
There's a practical reason why it's that way, and one of them is, of course, is the flashing that you have to provide. You know, generally, I don't like to keep I like to push the cant as far away from the parapet, simply because that's where all the problems are. And then put a swale with overflows and roof decks. And that is the reason why is there. And the other reason, your idea is a good idea, except that it's, I don't know where to end it.
Yeah, I'm seeing that
You
right
know.
away. Anyway, it was just a question and a thought, whether you thought about that as you're trying
Yeah, I
to negotiate with the neighbor.
Yeah, I did. He didn't have any concerns about that, if I recall. I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible there.
Okay, I have a couple questions, and one of those is, one of the comments in the minutes was suggesting commercial space on the first floor instead of residential, and I don't see that addressed. And then the second one, well, there was three. One was that the windows, I think on the east elevation, had more of a horizontal orientation to them. That, I know you said you need to work on that some more, so maybe that's one of the things you plan on working on. But I'm also confused about the comment in the minutes about muttons on the north and west were okay, but not to have muttons on the east and south. And I'm thinking that the comment was probably meant to say, provide muttons on the east and south. I don't know why we would say no muttons on two elevations.
Seems odd, doesn't it?
It does seem, yeah. So whether you recall, and
I do recall
that it should have been muttons all the way around.
Yeah, and what we're trying to do is to put all the money in front and to keep it a little simpler on the end, just so that we can meet the
But
construction
then you're
budget.
talking about wood turnings and.
Well, that's important, isn't it? Well, I don't know where we're going to end up on that. It just depends on the window manufacturer, whether we have true divided lights, and of course, everything has to be per Title 24, so it's tough. And I hate to have appliques of muttons.
That's what they usually are, is the simulated divided
That's the
lights.
problem.
As long as they're not internal grids, so.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, well, but that is to be determined, and,
So the question would be, could you address about the commercial on the ground floor?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. We heard you loud and clear, and I think we studied you loud and clear. We entertained the idea of the commercial along the Carrillo frontage. I think what we're really wanting to do is a special residential project. I mean, I think this is an opportunity to be in the downtown, living downtown without possibly the need for cars and have access to everything. You know, there are plenty of commercial spaces in and around us, and I think the intention is really to provide as many housing units as we can in this small opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other side of that conversation, because it was kind of a divided conversation, if I recall. Some of the opinion was maybe commercial, and then if we kept residential, it's to address that walkout, which we kind of covered. Is okay, we're gonna make sure that since it is a residential project, that we are addressing that kind of public interface side with more care with the vestibule that we created up front and kind of the front door that doesn't enter directly into the units, just to make it more appropriate to that and sensitive. So while there was some comments about commercial, the other side was, well, if you keep it residential, here's some other concerns. So that's the way, given the objection, the path of the project, that we wanted to proceed and bring it back around for discussion.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question.
Sure.
You know, the De La Vina vehicular entrance has a beautiful arch, and it's, to me, a powerful element, and it has that column in the center. Do you have any worries about people hitting that?
They probably will.
Yeah.
All at once, though. You know what is used to be done is they used to have those metal cones to back the idea of the column itself. It would be a hand carved column with a hand carved capital, and I've done those, and they're produced by a great craftsperson from Mexico. If it gets hit, we'll replace it, I suppose. Yeah, you can see it right there. But we'll try to protect it as much as possible. I think people are going to be too careful about destroying something like that.
That's a very Islamic capital.
Is it?
Yeah, it's very Islamic in a lot of ways.
Well,
I would agree with that.
I've seen it in Istanbul. Yeah.
This is the home of the caliphate.
let's leave it and see what people say.
Okay, are we done with questions or ready to go into comments? Who would like to start?
No, I can.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is fantastic. I mean, this is absolutely fantastic. I would have to work hard to find anything to be critical of on it. But I'll work on that.
You will.
Yeah.
Are they low enough?
The awnings are great. I really think this is a good project. To drive down that street and say, where did that lube shop go, will be, a wonderful thing. It is really, really, really nice. Really nice. I just can't think of anything to be critical of. I think that you've given respect to Brian Smith's office building, and I think you've given respect to the building that fronts on Carrillo Street. And this will be something we'll point to as being a good example of what we want to see happening downtown. Mm-hmm. And with regard to the fourth floor, I would certainly support exceeding the height limit because the placement of that fourth-story element is so far back from everything that you probably have a tough time seeing it from the freeway even. Mm-hmm. So I think it's certainly a good project.
Thank you for those comments. Who would
Mr.
like to
Chair.
go next? Mr. Commissioner Butler.
If I can echo the previous comments, this is a significant improvement over the last present. I think somebody on the commission referred to it as a monstrosity.
Who could that be?
Forgive me. But I do see, this is really nice. You've made some really, first of all, keeping it residential, I think, is a solution to a whole lot of other issues. So I would advocate for that. I think that's a great choice. Secondly, how you've done with the windows and the changes and taking away the balconies for most of the building is definitely, again, improvement. Moving the fourth floor to the center of the building, you're right. You're not going to see that for most viewers, even driving by, let alone, so a significant improvement. Just a couple thoughts. The obelisk just kind of, it looks like it landed. I don't know. I'm not so sure it's needed. I mean, it's not bad, but it just sort of shows, it's like I don't know, it just sort of shows up, and I don't know. But I'll let you, as a creative people, address that.
Be compassionate.
We're compassionate about, I just, I actually thought the awnings could go. I differ with my colleague, but, it's an optional sort of thing. So anyway, all very much improved, and I'm supporting the direction of the project as to where it's headed. That's great.
Thank you. Commissioner Hansberg.
Thank you. Beautiful, really, really nice. And I agree with basically everything that everyone else has already said. I totally support the height. I support the no commercial. I support that the awnings could go away, given that there's trees there already. I think that that makes a lot of sense. I love the plan and how you've dealt with the entries. I think, I think of the beautiful, when you're in Europe, these beautiful buildings with the beautiful door you go through, and then you go through to your unit. I love that, how you've done it, and the planting area to kind of keep people away from the windows. I love I think the eyebrows, great solution with the shadow line, and how you lowered it to the east for the neighbors. That really worked out well. And I love the sloped sill detail as well. And the Monterey balcony. I kind of think the obelisk also, I sort of feel like you've already got it so elegant and so simple. I don't really know that you need that. I would suggest maybe, since the awnings are going away, maybe you could have some kind of a cartouche above the archway there, or some decorative thing in that way instead. And I really like how you took those balconies away. I think you solved that problem. And then you're working on the east and the west. Both of them, I understand what you're doing to try to keep it simple, but they do need a little something. So you'll figure something out. But great job, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I agree with a lot of those comments. Of course, you have the language of the Santa Barbara style down really well. And you're telling a great story in this building. I certainly appreciate the fact that a very bulky 4-story building has turned into a very romantic 3-story building with a little bump in the middle that I don't think anybody's going to see from anywhere unless they're seriously looking for it. I don't mind the awnings. I recognize the fact that there are a lot of trees along that street, but street trees come and go. And I think the awnings lend a little bit of interest to the elevation. And so I would encourage you to keep them. I think they're fine. I don't mind bumping the 4th floor just beyond the height limit. I think it's appropriate. I don't think anybody, unless they are a vertical height scientist of some sort, is going to say, that's 4.5. That's a little too tall. Nobody's going to know. So I don't have any problem with that. With respect to what's your cast iron element, I say go for it. I would see it as an art element. It's an expression of something, and I don't have a problem with something in that courtyard expressing that, whether it's that or a water feature or some other thing that needs to express itself. I'm fine with that. In general and overall, very supportive of the project. Thanks.
I don't remember calling on you.
I'm the only one left except for you.
Did you make comments already? Yes,
Yes,
you
I
did.
did.
And you? Yeah, okay. My comments, I seem to be the only one that has a problem with the residential on the ground floor. I just can't imagine living in that corner space there. And the windows are large, and they're on 2 sides. So, it's similar to whatever the project is where the public market is, and there's the Paseo that goes to the Arlington's entrance, and they just have their blinds drawn all the time because otherwise they're in a fishbowl. So just doesn't seem like an attractive place. On the other hand, I recognize we're overstocked with commercial space, and there are a lot of vacancies. So it would otherwise be a commercial space that is not rented. So it's a tough one.
Be in a fishbowl.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah, exhibitionists. But anyway, that's kind of up to Planning Commission to opine on that. And I agree with everybody else. It's a beautiful building, and it's really going to set a high bar, and I think that's a wonderful thing. So who would like to make a motion? No, it's just to be.
Mr. Chair?
Right, exactly.
I would like to add on to what Mr. Uli said. I think the awnings are a good deal. personally.
I agree with that, too. I
Yeah.
think the splash of color is
Yeah,
fine.
exactly. I think it's a good deal, and the tough thing will be keeping them there for long periods of time, years, and we live with that, you know.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to comment on, I'm not sure you mentioned the material you would use for your windows and doors. But I don't know that we would necessarily need wood for them. We've been talking among ourselves and are hoping for a larger discussion about not forcing people in EPV to use wood because it's so tough to maintain and keep clean and neat, so on and so forth. So an appropriate colored, you know, metal window, whether it's steel or aluminum or whatever, I think it's very, very doable in downtown Santa Barbara in this day and age. And we don't want to create maintenance problems where we don't need to.
We're realists and we approve them all the time.
Yeah.
So not a big issue. Okay, well, I will
Chair,
summarize.
one question to follow up on the windows. They would be able to do whichever they wanted.
Yeah.
If
Oh,
they
yeah.
wanted to do wood, they could, and if they wanted to do the metal, because of course, on everything, there's advantages and disadvantages, and the wood is so beautiful and can more easily be repaired over time if you get a good quality window. There's, you know, advantages to that, but if we just let them have that choice.
We will.
Okay.
And we have to be back to you for PDA
Oh, yeah.
eventually, too. so.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'll summarize the comments that the commission finds this to be an exceptional building and sets a high bar for future development of this sort. And that at least one member has a concern about residential on the ground floor facing Carrillo and De La Vina Street. The commission generally supports the awnings and the art element. We have no problem with the minor additional height above the 48-foot height limit. We would like to see the west and east, the south and east elevations studied more. The windows should have muntins. The windows should all have a more vertical orientation. I liked your suggestion of a cartouche above that arch going to the courtyard.
And also possibly one there, and then possibly above where you enter into the parking.
Yeah, so
Anyway,
how to put that, just, you know, a cartouche above the arches would be entertained. What else am I missing?
Keep your fingers crossed it comes off.
Yeah.
Very, very nice.
Well, okay, and I would say that the commission would support wood windows or an alternative such as aluminum clad or steel windows. I think that's probably everything. So we look forward to seeing the building back for project design approval.
Thank you so much.
nice job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank